we will lose this country. So the limits are on you. You tell me the limits.
Yes, again, this is the same question that I asked about to Tom Tancredo. Ron Paul's rank and file members, many of them want to stop all immigration, legal and illegal immigration. And I'm wondering, Congressman Good, have you ever had any conversation with Ron Paul to indicate that he is supportive of this issue, or is it only from the bottom up and he doesn't take this issue?
Let me say, I really enjoyed serving with Ron Paul and sat beside him many times on the floor, and as you know, they're not assigned seats in the House. You just sit wherever you want to. And I contributed personal money to his campaign, Duncan Hunter's and Tom Tancredo. But I will say this, on immigration, Tom was the best, Duncan Hunter was a close second. On who has the guts to cut the federal budget like it needs to be cut, my hat is off to Ron Paul.
Yeah.
But I hope that you and others who are supporters and followers of Ron Paul would urge him to see the wisdom of the Lou Barletta position and those of us who believe that we need to totally stop illegal immigration and greatly reduce legal immigration so that the American citizen comes first.
And one thing I want to add real quick, just in my traditional role of dumping cold water on everything. A lot of, if you look at Ron Paul's record, or Rand Paul's record for that matter, I mean, pretty solid on immigration, although maybe not as vocal about it as some of us would like. But as far as, where this libertarian movement will go, I mean, who knows? I mean, it might end up coalescing behind Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson is open borders. And so you would have this whole anti-establishment movement and end up supporting someone who would be worse than Bush or McCain. So that's why I would say, one, I think there's no more important issue than immigration. If you don't get this right, nothing else matters. And given that realization, we should be supporting with our money and our time the leaders on this issue, as opposed to leaders on other issues who, frankly, have enough support and don't have to deal with fighting all the same enemies that we do.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. Hagel Martinez did pass the Senate amnesty in 2006. Frankly, it was up to Jim Sensenbrenner, I would virtually attest to that, helped block that. It was actually a technical reason why it couldn't go over to the House, because they had some appropriation language and whatever. In any event, yes, it was stopped. But my real question is, the topic today is, will immigration destroy the GOP? I think the question that Kevin sort of hit upon is, will the issue of immigration destroy the GOP? Because I think it's really divided the Republican Party. When you have President Bush, Karl Rove, Lindsey Graham, McCain, Jeb Bush, and the rest talking about people who oppose amnesty, comprehensive immigration reform, and settler enforcement as racists, bigots, nativists. This really comes down to, can the various elements within the Republican Party reconcile themselves, or is this going to cause a schism that's going to be very, very difficult to repair?
Obviously the panelists will have a bit more inside information on this than I do, but I'll say I don't think there's that much of a division. I just think the base is 100% on our side and the leadership is on the other. I consider it one of my proudest boasts that I never voted for George W. Bush, and if his brother runs, I'm not going to vote for him either.
I think that the question is an interesting for debate privately or publicly, but it's not politically relevant, because if immigration is indeed, as we believe it, continues as we do, have this policy that we do that's so failed and can destroy the country, I don't give a hoot what the party leaders say. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and say, okay, can we come together now and kumbaya and work together? I say, get me the best daggone leader. Let's get him in, win the nomination, then go over to these guys and say, come on aboard. And they'll have lots of reasons to come aboard because the person will also be a terrific fiscal conservative, and that'll bring more Republicans. That's the that's the nomination process. But if before the nomination process, we're all making deals to all talk nice, then we are not going to win the American people, because they want some boldness and some real courage from our leaders, not this mumbo jumbo we all can
I agree with you, but the point I was trying to make is that these people were the leaders of the party, in fact branded their own party as racist and bigots.
They
So
sure have.
what kind
So
of
let's get rid
individuals,
of them.
what kind of individuals want to join a party that their own leadership brands them as made up of partially of racists and bigots and labels?
I believe that the fact that I'm sitting here today talking with all of you is a perfect example that standing up for the rule of law will not divide this country, that this country is craving leadership, this country is craving, the American people are craving someone who's willing to stand up and fight for the American people and the American way. And although the politicians, I have never, I was mayor for 11 years and I was a congressman for 4 weeks. I have never been the favorite of politicians, and I got to be honest with you. Sometimes I'm actually very uncomfortable around some of them, because I'm comfortable right here. I'm comfortable around people because I know what people want, and that's what America wants. So if party leadership, whether it be Republican, Democrat, whatever, they are not going to dictate to the American people any longer. I don't believe that. I believe this country has awoken.
Right.
Yes, I have a question for you, Mr. Deanna. I was wondering how you would answer the libertarians who say, well, the real problem with immigration and illegal immigration is the benefits, the state, like gives them money, gives them free health care, gives them welfare, food stamps, etc. And if we just got rid of those benefits, then we could abolish the borders. It wouldn't matter anymore.
Right.
How do you answer that?
Well, one thing, I mean, just on a purely practical consideration, which we've been talking about the entire time, is when I have these kinds of arguments and they say, well, if we would just get rid of the welfare state, I say, okay, go do it. Abolish it. You know, it's like the joke where there's like an economist and an engineer, and they're stuck on a desert island, and they have this can of food. And the engineer comes up with this like elaborate plan how they're going to open up this can of food so they can survive. And the economist is like, no, I have a better idea. First, we assume we have a can opener. You can't. I mean, it's so far beyond that point that we're not going to. I mean, again, I don't see any prospects of even mild cuts in federal spending, never mind abolishing the welfare state. But the second point I think is more important, which is, you know, America's not a marketplace. America is not just a collection of people who happen to sit on a certain area of soil and then we call that a country. And the different nations of the world aren't just different collections of random people that compete to have the best economy. And if America is a marketplace and it's, you know, it's just a land of Walmarts and McDonald's and we're all just here consuming, I mean, that's not something worth supporting. I mean, I think we'd all agree, and I think the reason many of us are conservatives and right-wing libertarians would agree, is that America is a nation, the same as any other nation, a nation with a real culture and a real people worth preserving for its own sake. And while I think that the economy would greatly benefit if we curtailed illegal immigration, and greatly reduce legal immigration, and I find a lot of these studies that are saying that that immigration somehow benefits the economy are wrong, I'd go so far as to say that even if you could prove to me, and I don't concede this for a moment, but even if you could prove to me that this would hurt the economy, I would still be opposed to illegal immigration, because it's about our dispossession as a people.
Yeah.
We're almost out of time here, so let's get one more question.
Okay. In addition to the bigoted and racist argument against those who oppose illegal immigration, and the libertarian argument of let's have open borders, there are two other arguments that I always hear, and I'd like to get your feedback. The first is these jobs that these illegals are taking, the West Indian nannies, the people working in chicken processing plants who are Hispanic or Asian, would not be taken by Native Americans. And the second argument is we're lucky because, unlike in Europe, where the illegal immigration are Muslims who will not assimilate, who want to create their own society, Sharia law, and etc., the Mexicans, who are the greatest number of legal immigrants, will, after a generation, assimilate, and because they're staunch Roman Catholics and religious, will probably even become Republicans, sort of like Irish Catholics did when they switched from becoming staunch Democrats to staunch Republicans after a couple of generations. How would you answer those two arguments?
Yeah, why don't we go this way?
Long question. No, I disagree. I think what would happen is, well, first of all, I disagree that those that come here from Mexico and Central America will only do jobs that Americans want to do. Anecdotal story. I live near Halifax County. I asked this guy, did roofing work? He said, I can't get a roofing job now because illegals from Mexico have come in and they've taken every home roofing contract and want to be paid in cash. They do it for a lot less. But if you may have to pay a little more, which I think would be good for the economy, Americans will do all the jobs you mentioned if the pay is right.
Well, I traveled the country and on this issue of immigration. When I was in North Carolina, I met with a terrific man who was a Vietnam vet, Black American. He was the president of Black Chamber of Commerce for the town I was in North Carolina. And he told me the story that he said, you know, we were it was a thriving organization. And the people there, he said they were like, had painting companies and contracting companies, roofing and paving, and he says we would, you know, and they would hire their son-in-laws and their sons' friends, because a lot of times the Black Americans just didn't, you know, get through the college like they needed and whatever. And he says, and we took care of each other. That's what we did, and it was a terrific community. And he says, look here, I'll introduce you a couple people. They've all lost their businesses, every one of them, because he said we have affirmative action. So, you know, as a minority firms, they were able to get some terrific jobs. And one painter said to me, look, I wasn't trying to make a lot of money. I was just trying to make a living, but I couldn't make a bid because I couldn't pay my people that kind of money. I couldn't. They're all done. And why? Did they do anything wrong? They did nothing wrong. They were having businesses, they're taking care of their families, they're taking care of their communities. What happened was Washington failed to do their job and allowed other people to break our laws, and they lost it to people who had Hispanic Americans who would head up the firm and hire nothing but illegals. And that's who they lost the jobs to.
The problem, and we've heard this time and time again, is the problem is that Americans can't afford to work for the wages that illegal aliens will work. Our population in Hazleton grew by 50%, but our taxes stayed the same. Now, that's an incredible statistic, which shows you the underground workforce who are not paying taxes, but yet taking jobs when unemployment in America is nearing 10%. In the meatpacking industry, they also depressed the wages of the American worker. In the meatpacking industry, the national average was at one time $19 an hour. Now it's down to $9 an hour. So it's a proven fact that, and it's all about money. If you get to the root of illegal immigration, it's all about money on both ends. Businesses that want to profit by cheap labor, putting Americans out of work, and illegal aliens that are here wanting money, wanting to work here as well. There's also a misconception that our illegal immigration problem is only on our southern border. I've testified to the fact that in my city, most of the crimes that have been committed have not been from those who have crossed the southern border. They've actually have been from the Dominican, where they were getting false ID coming into New York and New Jersey and up and down the East Coast. Now, there's a red flag here. We arrested, for example, we had a near riot in downtown Hazleton. We arrested an individual who was in the country illegally, who we arrested back in 2006 for selling cocaine. He did his time, was deported. He comes back to America, sneaks in a second time, and of all places, the knucklehead ends up back in Hazleton, where we arrested